The Wombat pushed his broad paws into the red-brown clay, expecting the familiar resistance, a gentle but firm pressure pushing upward as the soil yielded, compressed, and held its shape. Digging was his oldest instinct, his life's rhythm. Each motion made sense only because the earth responded. Push, feel the weight push back. Carve, feel the tunnel support itself. The land and the animal worked together. But today the earth refused him. His claws sank in far too easily. The soil gave way like loose fabric, collapsing without weight or tension. There was no pressure, no counterforce, nothing anchoring his paws. His body lurched forward, unexpected, as though he had punched through air instead of dirt. He snorted, confused, and tried again. His claws slid into the clay with no resistance. The soil crumbled around his paws but did not push back, did not hold their shape, did not compress. It simply fell inward, dispersing like dust despite its appearance of solid moisture. He looked down. The reddish clay looked normal, soft from recent rains, but cohesive, yet it behaved like nothing he had ever touched. He pressed with more weight, bracing with his hind legs. The ground still failed to answer him. It accepted his weight, but didn't return any of it. He felt as though gravity existed only one way. He sat back on his haunches, ears twitching in irritation. Digging without earth pressing back was like swimming without water. He stood again and tested the ground with small, cautious movements. His claws pushed forward. Easy. Too easy. The soil crumbled, slid, sank. But none of it offered resistance. He tried forming a tunnel. Normally, when he dug, the earth packed naturally along the sides, creating firm walls. Today, no matter how he carved the clay, the walls refused to hold. They slumped inward instantly. Even the clay at the sides felt limp, lacking tension. He pushed his shoulder into the earth. Instead of firm resistance, the wall gave way like wet paper. He backed up quickly, blinking. Around him, the hillside looked the same as always. Eucalypts leaning at angles, leaf litter scattered in the breaking light, faint mist drifting at ground level. But beneath the surface, the earth's behavior had changed. A kookaburra perched above him laughed its rattling call, then shifted nervously as the ground below sagged slightly, as if losing structure without warning. The wombat stepped forward, testing the slope. It held beneath his weight, but not firmly. It wasn't soft, it was unanchored. He dug again, this time slower, careful. The earth still didn't press back. In his entire life, he had never felt soil like this. Clay always pushed upward with its own quiet strength, guiding the shape of burrows. Today the earth acted passive, directionless, obedient only to gravity and never to pressure. A lizard scuttled by, its claws sinking deeper than before. It paused, confused, then climbed onto a rock instead. Even small creatures sensed the loss of firmness. A kangaroo passed nearby, thumping the ground with a test of its hind foot. The soil sagged slightly under the pressure, but didn't rebound. The kangaroo tilted its head, sniffed, and hopped away with unease. The wombat lowered his head to smell the earth. Normal scents. Clay, roots, moisture, bacteria, but the texture betrayed the illusion of normalcy. He scraped deeper. The soil slid inward again. Nothing held shape. He tested the deeper layers, expecting denser earth. But even 30 centimeters down, the earth behaved the same. Soft, formless, non-reactive. The hillside shifted faintly above him. He froze. When earth didn't press back, it couldn't support itself. He moved away from the slope cautiously, claws scraping across the loose top layer. Even the simple act of walking felt strange. His paws didn't feel the usual firmness, the familiar push that told him the ground was stable. He felt as though he were stepping on soil that didn't truly remember being compacted. A pair of humans approached along a nearby track, carrying equipment. The wombat watched from behind a fallen tree as they crouched near a patch of exposed clay. One scooped a handful of earth and squeezed it. His eyebrows lifted. "It doesn't compress," he said. "It just collapses. The other pressed her hand against the slope. "It's lost structural integrity," she murmured. "No resistance, no cohesion." The first measured something with a small probe. "Even deeper, it's the same. Clay shouldn't behave like this. It needs counterpressure." The woman frowned. Burrowing animals are going to be in trouble. The wombat didn't know their words, but he understood the tone. Worry, urgency. He moved away slowly. He needed a tunnel. He needed shelter. He needed earth that pushed back. He tried digging near a thick root, hoping the root system would stabilize the area. He pressed into the ground, and once again the soil fell inward without forming walls. Even the root's presence didn't help. The surrounding earth refused to behave. It wasn't too soft. It simply lacked memory, lacked tension, lacked strength, like clay drained of its ability to hold shape. He tried once more, pushing deeper, his paws moving with determination. But the moment he released pressure, the walls collapsed immediately. A burrow couldn't exist in soil like this. A wombat couldn't exist without a burrow. He stepped back, breathing heavier now, heat building in his thick fur. Without burrows, his species had nowhere safe to rest, nowhere to hide from predators, nowhere to escape the day's heat. He tried scratching at the harder upper crust. Even that layer failed him, breaking without pressure. Birds overhead shifted uneasily. A bandicoot nosed the ground and recoiled as it sank too quickly. A goanna attempted to dig and stopped almost instantly, startled by the lack of resistance. The entire hillside, once a network of life, was becoming unusable. If the earth refused to press back tomorrow, or next week, or across the season, burrows would collapse faster than they formed, soil erosion would accelerate, vegetation roots would lose support, slopes could slide, rainfall would pool instead of absorbing, groundwater channels would distort, and every burrowing creature, wombats, echidnas, bandicoots, betongs, lizards, would lose the foundation of their survival. The wombat walked slowly across the slope, feeling the ground deform beneath him with every step, not pushing back, not holding shape. He looked at the clay one last time. It had always been a partner, firm when needed, yielding when he pushed, holding the shape of his work. But today the earth offered nothing in return. It simply let go. And as he wandered farther, searching desperately for a patch of soil that remembered its own strength, he understood the quiet, terrifying truth. The earth wouldn't press back. By the next dawn, the wombat sensed danger before he reached the digging grounds. The night had passed strangely. Even the earth beneath his belly felt warmer, looser, almost hollow. It was as though the soil held no internal friction, no tension, no memory of being packed. He walked slowly toward a familiar slope lined with shrubs, eucalyptus roots twisting through the clay. Normally the roots anchored the hillside, tightening the soil around them. Today the shrubs leaned at slight, unnatural angles, as if the earth no longer held them upright. He pressed a paw to the soil near one root. The clay slid aside like powder, not sticky, not cohesive, not resisting. His ears twitched. He pushed harder, expecting at least the deeper layers to firm up. But even 20 centimeters down, the earth behaved the same, loose, folding in on itself, refusing to provide counterpressure. It responded only to gravity and nothing else. He stepped back. A magpie flew down beside him, pecking at the ground. Normally its beak struck the soil with a crisp tapping sound. Today, its beak sank deep into the loose clay, startling the bird. It hopped back, shook its head, and tried again, only to sink again, unable to break or dislodge anything structurally. The wombat snorted uneasily. Above him, the slope released a faint groan, barely audible, more vibration than sound. A small section of earth slumped downward, not sliding, not cracking, simply sagging under its own weight as though it had forgotten how to hold shape. The wombat immediately moved away from the sagging line. He tested a new spot of clay, farther from the unstable area. He dug 3 strong strokes, the way he always did. The soil parted like loose sand, The walls didn't compress. The tunnel didn't form. He dug faster, pushing his shoulders into the wall to compact it manually. But the moment his weight left the surface, the clay slumped inward, filling the space again. It didn't collapse violently, it just refused to exist as a wall. He tried shaping it with his head, carving a curve. Nothing held. His instincts, old as the species itself, gave him answers the way hunger or sleep did, and his instincts were screaming that this earth could not make a burrow. He tried again, and again. Each attempt ended in the same slow, helpless implosion, not from pressure, from absence of pressure. The soil was no longer something he could push against, it was simply there. A goanna slid down the slope and attempted to dig out a resting hollow. Its claws raked through the earth, but the soil fell like ash around its limbs. The reptile hissed in confusion and retreated, climbing onto a log instead. Even lizards who could burrow into the softest sand found no structure to work with. The wombat glanced toward the riverbed, thinking perhaps the soil near water would behave differently. Wet clay always had weight, always responded. He waddled slowly, feeling the ground deform slightly under each step. Not enough to sink, but enough to feel wrong, like walking on something tired. Near the river, reeds drooped at odd angles. Their roots, usually firm in the mud, sagged loosely beneath the soil's surface. The reeds bent under their own weight, tilting sideways. He pressed a paw into the riverbank mud. Instead of pushing back, the mud sloshed inward, leaving no footprint, just a hollow that slowly widened until the edges softened and the shape melted away. He lifted his paw quickly. Insects crawled across the riverbank, beetles, earwigs, even a centipede, but they all sank deeper than they should have with each step. The tiny bodies left no prints, only shallow distortions that faded within seconds. The wombat trudged forward. Something else was happening. The ground was breathing unevenly, not literally, but the way it rose and fell as moisture shifted beneath the surface looked like a creature's chest moving. Pockets of soil bulged upward, then settled. Moisture seeped through the clay in strange, unpredictable lines. The water table was rising, not dramatically, but inconsistently, as though the earth's structure no longer constrained it. The wombat backed away from the edge. A sudden vibration rattled his paws. He froze. The hillside above him shifted again, slow, silent, ominous. A sheet of clay slumped downward, bending low-growing bushes with it. Not a landslide, a soft collapse, like a mattress sagging. He watched the earth deform and return to a slightly new shape, losing definition, but holding still. The world around him wasn't crumbling violently, it was losing its ability to resist. The wombat needed shelter. He needed a burrow for the coming day's heat. He moved desperately along the hillside, claws flashing in the clay, searching for any patch that still behaved like earth. He found a zone where the soil looked darker, denser, perhaps wetter. He dug his claws in. For a moment he felt resistance. Hope fluttered. He pushed harder, and the soil instantly lost its firmness, becoming the same limp, non-reactive layer as everywhere else. He growled softly. Frustration, fear, hunger, instinct bleeding together. Nearby, a small wallaby attempted to dig at the base of a tree to reach moist roots, but the soil provided no pressure, no opposing force to brace against. It pawed helplessly, then gave up and hopped away. The eucalyptus above the wombat creaked. Its trunk leaned slightly, soil loosening around its roots. The tree's long taproot held it upright. For now, the wombat looked upward, ears twitching. Trees falling was no small danger for a creature his size. Soft soil could not keep them anchored. A pair of humans appeared near the ridge again, carrying larger instruments, ground-penetrating sensors, soil density meters, core samplers. One inserted a probe into the ground. It slid down effortlessly, nearly a meter. "Density is wrong," she said, staring at the readings. "It shouldn't behave like this even after heavy rain." Another knelt, examining the collapsing slope. "It's not erosion. The soil matrix isn't supporting itself. The clay's shear strength is near zero. A third tapped his notes. Burrowing species won't stand a chance. Their tunnels can't hold. The Wombat only understood their tone. Grave, urgent. He tried one last time to dig near a granite outcrop where soil was usually compacted by stone. His claws scraped the earth. It parted instantly. No wall, no core, no promise of structure. He sat back heavily, chest heaving. Without burrows, he had no refuge from the day's heat, dingoes, eagles, storms, dehydration, exhaustion. Burrows were Wombat's world. The earth was Wombat's ally. But today, the earth refused to act like earth. If the soil wouldn't press back tomorrow, or next week, or through the turning of seasons, Wombats would be forced above ground, their bodies overheating, their food sources exposed to rapid erosion, their shelter gone, predators emboldened, and entire slopes risked liquefying under rain, triggering collapses through valleys, destabilizing forests and waterways. The sun rose fully now, warming his thick fur. He needed shelter, but the land no longer offered any. He walked slowly across the deformed hillside, each step sinking slightly into ground that had forgotten resistance. The earth had become passive, yielding, unalive, and as he moved beneath the leaning trees, feeling the soft soil give way beneath him like a slow exhale, he understood the painful truth of the world he stood upon. The earth wouldn't press back.